Well, this is official. It broke, Jay.
What?
On 3, Ohio State transfer Kyle McCord moving on from Nebraska.
Oh, was what? He's moving on?
The former Buckeye signal caller will keep his transfer portal recruitment open.
All right. Well, then there you go. Now it's Dylan Raiola or a bust. Right? Is that it?
It's Dylan Raiola or Chubba Purdy. Welcome back.
Man, listen, man. Well, I mean, look, man, you got to look. Kyle McCord's got to go. He's got to do what's best for him. You don't know all the dynamics and whether he felt like he has other opportunity out there, or he didn't feel like potentially being able to get a fair chance to significantly separate himself from Dylan, or Dylan or any other quarterback. I'm assuming it had a lot to do with Dylan Raiola possibly coming, or maybe already committed, or assume that he's going to commit. And so maybe that's it. And then he chose to go in other places. And so you got to wish him the luck, wish him the best of luck, no hard feelings. And, we just read the report that he had a great visit by Chad Hummer. Chad, you wrong, dog. And so you just never know. There's tea leaves out there. I will tell you this. This is why bowl games are so important. So people need to listen. When you make a bowl game and you have some early enrollees, there's a loophole that early enrollees can move in and practice. Austin.
Mm-hmm.
So think about this. We'll just do simple math, right? Just say you play in a New Year's Day bowl. So you probably get about 15 practices, right? 15 to 20 practices.
Well, you get 15 allotted by the NCAA.
Okay, so 15 bowl practices, right? So 15 practices that you get. Then so you get 15 practices right there. And then then you get the spring. So that's another 15, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's 30 practices before you play.
Before you get to fall camp.
Versus a kid that either only gets 15 if they're an enrollee or not a bowl eligible team, or you come in fall camp. That's why some freshmen look really good, because you get essentially, let's just say you have 3 hard weeks of practices during the season, or 3 practices a week that are hard during the season. You got 10 weeks worth of practices already.
Mm-hmm.
If you combine, you've banked 30. On top of then you get summer conditioning or winter conditioning, spring ball, summer conditioning, fall camp. That's why that's a small little thing. That's really, really huge for teams, players that are trying to make an impact. And when you think about it, there's some schools right now, I won't say any names, they're moving in this weekend. So if you can connect the dots, there might be a gold mine at the end of the rainbow if you can connect it. You know, like how when you're a little kid you got to do the connect the dots and you get through there. Yeah, you can do that. So I mean, look, you wish Kyle McCord good luck, and I'm sure that means Julian Fleming is probably out too as well. I'm sure. I mean, if I was a quarterback, or if you were a quarterback and I'm a receiver, you're not going, I'm not going.
Right.
Because I want to go. So I don't think they're going to go together. But I assume if they're coming to Nebraska, they're coming together in the Big Ten. So you never know. But we'll see. It's coming down to money time. Now the pressure ramps up to
land a big fish this weekend.
Oh, hey man, listen. Well, I could just tell if it's me. Oh, I'm getting off. I might just get off the plane, and I might be in my Teddy Savalas robe or something. I might get off the plane like I would be really thinking I'm Ric Flair when I get off the rope. Get off there.
Why not?
Then that'd be me as the dad.
Mm-hmm.
Let the son. You just need to dress regular. I'm just showing all the way out. We listen.
Not part of the way out.
We
not halfway out.
Oh yeah, we gonna
all
have
the way out.
Yeah, we gonna because they gonna talk bad about your dad this weekend. You know what I mean? They go like, yeah, Jay, I don't know, whatever. They be like, yeah, his dad he was too much, but we got to deal with him. I'll be just everywhere, just
LeVaring it up.
Oh yeah, I'll be walking up down O Street, walking in there. I would be having a good old weekend, boy. I don't even know if I might make the flight back. I might just chill. I was like, I'll see you in a couple weeks when you're early enrollee. So we'll see, man. It's always look, man. Like we said, it's just never. You just never know. Interesting news and stuff like that. And until you get a commitment, and better yet, until you get signed on the dotted line with the transfer portal guys, because they have a little bit longer versus the early enrollees, right? Because they sign their letter of intent on Wednesday. They're once they sign their letter of intent, they're pretty much locked in. Whereas the portal guys, you just gotta wait till they show up on campus, and that's always in January, and things can change. So we've seen that last year, and you just seen it right now live on Old School here, reported by On3. So that's Sean Callahan and Steve Sipple and them, right?
It was actually the guy Nick had on before. Pete Nakos was the one that broke this.
Pete, but that's who Sipple and those guys work for, right? So while I'm saying that it's a reputable source. So he probably got it from somewhere, maybe from the man himself, McCord. And now the flight tracker from Georgia. Hey man. I mean, you know what I would do? I don't even know if I wouldn't even come.
If you're Dylan?
You already been here. I just be like, yeah, I'm coming. I don't even know if I come. I mean, I wouldn't do any. I mean, what's the point? I wouldn't want to make it a big fanfare thing. I just want, if I'm coming, I'm just doing my thing and I'm leaving. It's not.
Just vibing, weekend trip, or getaway.
He's not a partier. So just come up and do what you need to do and make sure everything's, A-okay or whatever you need to get in the business in, and then go from there. Because what I would really be doing is training and being ready. Because I always tell young players this, and this is the hardest part for them when they go into college. Everybody's talented. Everybody has talent. No matter, even walk-ons have talent. Then that's what you can find out. Look, we have walk-ons in Nebraska play from the Bullock brothers to other guys. Look, and through the history of Nebraska, a lot of times we're more talented than the guys that were on scholarship, and that's why they end up being on scholarship. So to be at Nebraska, you have to have talent. Now, some have more talent than others. Do not let talent be your demise, because now you got to get here and sacrifice. You got to compete. You got to be coachable. You got to be able to deal with adversity. You got to be able to find a way to beat out a guy that's just as talented as you. You have to find if they have a weakness. Then you got to go up against guys on the other side of the ball, whatever it may be, that are just as talented as you. And you know what? Sometimes they're even more talented than you.
And their job's to destroy you.
And your job, they're trying to get the same position that you're getting, just in a different, position group. That's hard to deal with, because if you've always been so talented that either you've been kind of placed in positions or never had to really deal with the attention to detail, then you can always say just be stuck on stupid. You're like, well, why aren't you progressing? Well, you're not going to generate, unless it's like I always say, like Randy Moss, those type of guys.
Terrell Owens.
Yeah, Terrell, but more like Randy Moss was just different. Like when he's out there, you just like, all right, man, I'm in for we're in for a long day. You know what I mean? Jerry Rice, you could say, he was talented, but he's really self-made worker. Terrell Owens. There's some guys that, like a Reggie White, and those guys are just freaks of nature. So what I'm saying is, when you get to college, you're not gonna out talent somebody. The talent that you have to have is your willingness to, work, to get better, to be invested, to give yourself, to deal with that all those things that I mentioned, and then go out there and rely on your training and really fall in love with the details that you didn't really have to do in middle school, high school, and maybe at some points in college. Because you know what, you might be moving along the process of playing well, but here comes some freshman that gets it. That's able, if we're able to bowl game, showing some promise in bowl games, get all the nervous energy out of them, then make some improvement in winter conditioning, and then next thing you know, in spring ball, you're in for a dogfight. And so that's where you have to really make sure that you really check yourself, because if you want to be good, I always say, when people, I was doing a thing for the Big Ten, and they were asking me about like coaching, and I was like, first of all, you got to be demanding, right? And the reason why, if I was recruiting you, Austin, there's some demands that are just non-negotiable. This is the way we do things, and this is the effort I expect. So that isn't a conversation. It's a conversation like I had with my dad, right? I never forget. Like it was about chores or something, and he said, "Listen, We live in a democracy until you make it a dictatorship. So I didn't know what either one of those was, right? He's a democracy is like, we're talking right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, if you force me to make it into a dictatorship by not doing what you're supposed to do, aka demands, and doing it the right way, which is standards for a long period of time, schoolwork or whatever, well, then it's going to be a one-sided conversation.
I'm going to be talking, you're going to be listening.
You're right, and and I will force you to talk, right? So the demands become standards, and then the expectations come. It just kind of flows into each other. Everybody talks about culture and tries to find like, coach needs to get up there and put 8 million things up there definition. No, it starts with the demands. Those demands, whatever detailed and very black and white as they are non-negotiables. And then that goes into your standards, because everybody that comes in has to answer to those demands. And then as everybody becomes equipped with those demands and relishes in those demands and then welcomes those demands, then your standards start to come, not only start there, right? Because that's the starting point.
Right.
The demands are just the starting point. Okay. And then the standards become even higher, right? And then the accountability comes from, because you'll have more guys, doing the demands and the standards. So then, you know what? The team will hold you accountable.
And they're not thinking about the way things used to be, right? Like that first group, when those demands are put in place, are probably like, coach is bugging.
Yeah.
He's tripping. What are we doing? Why is this necessary?
Yeah, that's normal.
Right.
That's normal.
So the ones that fight through it, that meet those demands, that change those standards, that then flow into expectations. Once you're into the expectations phase, it's business as usual. You're not thinking about, this is how it used to be. What can we get away with? It's just simply, this is what we do.
Right. And the thing about it is the expectations that aren't going to change whether you're a senior or a freshman. And you know what? It is natural for people to say, Coach J is bugging. Man, he's out, he's off the chain. He's tripping and all that. You know what? I welcome that. There's a lot of coaches that just want you to show up and shut up, right? Yes, you want to make sure all your kids are coachable. I don't mind a kid being upset that you got to work extra hard, harder than maybe I even had you before, because again, the expectations and the standards will continue to grow over time, right? I don't mind that, because you want to know why, Austin? That's okay if you're questioning it or the B word about it or whatever, as long as you do it.
Right.
Because I know once you do it and then you see the what happens after it, then I don't have to worry about it. The ones that refuse to even try to do it, or to do it when everybody else is doing it, or finding a way not to do it, those are the ones that will either recruit players not to do it, they would essentially be the cancer in the locker room, or they're the ones that you got to politely ask to leave, because the standards are the standards, and this is the way we got to do things, and this is the expectations for we expect for you to do things day in and day out. And if you can't handle it, you got to get the heck up out of here. And it's not even personal.
No,
it's just the way it is. And so for these freshmen coming in, whether it's potentially Dylan Raiola or anybody else, I mean, that's just the way it is. Like playtime's over. Like high school is playtime. That's like that's. I mean, I'm not trying to bust anybody's bubble. Like that's like a little play date. You out there, doing your thing. Okay, this is business. I'm being dead serious.
Starting in college,
right? If I was to talk to the freshmen, all that stuff, all your little buddies, all your little high school like letter jackets, all that little high school love, and broski and doing and all the stuff you're doing on Instagram and Twitter and whatever else, like that's gone, bro. This is business, and if you're not here to handle business, you will fail. You might have like a play or two, game or two, heck, even a season, but you will not prosper, because this is business, and this does not mean you can't have fun. But the fun comes from working hard and winning. I have never seen anybody have fun losing. If you do, then that's a great loser, and you ain't gonna win nothing with that.
We call that youth soccer.
Yeah. I mean, so it's a harsh reality for a lot of people. I think a lot of people come in thinking that, what the funniest question I ever had is my man Mike Muscatel. Mike Muscatel, he was a Division I golfer at Clemson. Kind of did some mentor stuff with him, and then he was at Clemson and after a year or two, and then he met a lot of Clemson players, and obviously this is right around the time Clemson was taking off, right? And now he's works on the New York Stock Exchange, and he has a great job, real smart kid. but this was not a very smart question. And he was asking me one time, he's like, what was your mindset when this must have been the dudes he must be talking to at Clemson, right? Because he came back after his first year. He sat down. I'll never forget, man. And we were at like Chipotle or something, man. And he was like, hey, man, what was your mindset when you went to Nebraska? And he's like, was it just, I'm just going to the league and he was like, bump school? Like bump school? I'm just here to play football? I was like, you serious? And he was like, yeah. I was like, nah, man, that ain't it. I was trying to graduate, and football was just the byproduct of me being in the right place at the right time. But it's funny how that's how a lot of these young kids think, and then they crash it down for them because their reality is nowhere near real, and sometimes you can get caught up in your own like tidal wave, and then the reality smacks you in the face, and you end up like Nurkic last night against Draymond
slapped in the face through no fault of your own.
Yeah, and questioning things and what happened. So, look, Kyle McCord is moving on, onward and upward. Obviously got to respect his decision, and I can understand it as well. He's looking to find a place where he's going to be able to play and start. And it'd be hard if Dylan does come here. You always be looking over your shoulder, every interception or something like that. We've seen that this year, but just for him, especially if you had the number one recruit not starting and when he plays well, it's just probably is not the ideal situation for a quarterback like him. And I don't know him personally, especially being at Ohio State, leading him to 11-1 record and winning some games on your arm.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially your last pass was an interception that you lost to to Michigan, and being told at some point in time that you might not start next year, and we're trying to get Cam Ward because that's what really set him off.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're out there, swimming out there in the ocean without a landing spot. So it'll be, interesting to see where he lands up and how well he does and how different the situation is in the quarterback room is versus where we end up potentially come Monday.
That's the question, right? Because sounded like Kyle McCord was a shoo-in. Sounds like Dylan Raiola was a shoo-in. Nothing is final.
No.
until the paperwork's done.
Until you get that fax coming, that fax thing. I don't know. I mean, at this point, man, I don't have, like I was talking to Jake back, like, I don't have time for a lot of discussion. Like, this is business now. Like, look, my job's on the line now. Okay?
Are you giving me enough to make me come right going somewhere else?
If I'm recruiting Austin Orman and you linebacker and we're here, like, we don't got time to play footsie and stuff. Like, we don't have time for that. We got it. Okay.
Here's the thing. I wouldn't waste your time. I don't look like a linebacker. So,
yeah, well, you look like an outside linebacker. You know what? Okay. Yeah, you look like the NC State linebacker, the one Nagurski or
Peyton Wilson.
Yeah, you look like kind of. Okay. Yeah, you up there with your 6-pack, and you got long arms. You look like you got.
I am a plus 1.5 wingspan.
There you go. See, there you go. You got a nice little get off too. So we can use your length and stuff. But I think at this point, we're down to the 23rd hour or 20, whatever you call it. Like, I don't got time to play games with anybody. Like, we've done this back and forth thing. Are we just going to kind of, exchange, pleasantries? Or are we going to get in this together because I want you here? I hope you want to be here. So let's just move forward. It's going to work out, and you got to have those type of hard conversations. And that doesn't mean you're giving them an ultimatum. The only ultimatum is Tuesday or Wednesday next week. So let's get forward. Let's make a decision and stick with it, and then go from there.
Can't be that hard, right? If there's mutual interest, figure out the way to make a deal. Obviously you think deal NIL monetarily, but the relationships, the egos that you have to be able to balance and manage.
The relationships, the support, the opportunity, the after football opportunity, the whole landscape has got to be taken into accountability. I will say this: we could take 5 visits when I was getting recruited, and my dad. This is why he went off on Wisconsin, but it was a big deal. Like, he was like, "Listen, if you're not offering him a scholarship, don't call. Like, we don't need exploratory visits. Like, I already had enough offers from good schools." And I only took one visit that I knew I wasn't going to go to the school. And one of my best friends played at Wyoming. And I kind of was already set between, Michigan State, Nebraska, Iowa, Miami. Those are my main 4. Northwestern, I was too scared to go to school.
You ain't go to school, play school, Jay.
Hey, listen.
You played school, but not just for school.
Listen, I remember sitting in front of that coach, and I was like, I love, because he's talking about the alumni in Chicago. I'm like, this is great. But then I'm thinking, like, then he was like, I can get you. He told my dad, he's like, we can get him in. He's got good enough grades to get him. My dad stood up and was like, how you going to keep him in? Right?
Thanks, Chuck.
Hey, well, listen, he knew his son limitation. You know what I'm saying? But Nebraska had a great support system academically. Big shout out to Keith Zimmer and Dennis LeBlanc. But I went to Wyoming, and I knew I wasn't going to go. But when I got there, I would say it was one of the best visits I had. Flew into Denver, went up to Laramie, and it was phenomenal. Too small of a campus, and they were just in the starting point where Coach Tiller was trying to get some money for the stadium. And we went snowmobiling, and that was probably the funnest. That was the funnest trip that we had. But I knew I wasn't going to go. But that was early in the process, and it was just like, let's just get you up here, see if. And I almost really started considering. I played against a kid in high school that went there. We played against each other, and they, offered both of us, but I ended up not going. But that was probably the closest to. If I had to go to Wyoming, I would have prospered. But I just knew I didn't want it. I had obviously bigger offers, and it was a little bit too far, a little too bit. It was not. I'm sure Laramie is a lot more built up than it, now than it was. And so it just wasn't. So what I mean is, for guys that are taking visits, whether you're transfer portal or high school guys, if in this last weekend, all over the country, hopefully you're not going for hats and gloves and a couple pictures. Right. If that's what you're doing, you don't, like I said, you don't even have a chance in college. This is money time, especially if you're, most guys are early enrollees or early commits. So big, pressure packed weekend, and hopefully it all works out, especially for Nebraska and especially for my main man, little nephew Dylan. I'm sure he'll make a good decision. He better, else I got to.
You can make a good decision. You better make the right decision.
Yeah, man.
How about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, man. You got to. I gotta get on the phone after I get out here. But again,
see if Don picks up.
He called me.
He did. Because he must say, progress.
I think he was listening about what I said, so he felt bad. But he knew I was on air, so he knew the call. So listen. Dom might be a knucklehead, but he ain't stupid.